Hi, good day. Basically, what I wanted to do today is show you a film, because you've been talking, I hear, all morning, so it's better to just see a film first. Basically, this film is a film I've done for ZDF Dreisat in 2012, about a bit more than a year ago. And it's on, I would say, freedom of speech and how to keep the internet open and free. And it's a film, a documentary, about 45 minutes on freedom technologies, what technologies can be used to circumvent the increasing censorship efforts by governments, and particularly during the Arab Spring. So I went to Egypt to basically talk to people who witnessed the Arab Spring and witnessed how the then Mubarak regime tried to stifle freedom of speech, stifle the uprisings, and what they could do about it. And so what I would like to do first is basically show you that film, show you that documentary, and then engage into a little discussion with you guys. Okay? So I don't know how the technical things work, but 45 minutes. Obviously, this film has been filmed during the first round of presidential elections in Egypt in end of May 2012. So it's about a bit more than a year. And we all know that Mohamed Morsi was elected president. We all know that he has since been deposed in a military coup. We also know that we heard in this film that the United States government is investing in circumvention technology. That's true. But we also know that the NSA is basically spying on all of us. So what to do? This is a documentary basically trying to inform you and everybody else in the populace to what is basically done in terms of protecting freedom of speech over the internet, particularly in countries where freedom of speech is under threat. And so we've seen here a couple of technical solutions which in itself might be compromised. I'm not so sure. But I would like to get into a discussion with you as users and people who are also influencing their own societies, what to do. Are we going to use these kinds of technologies? Are they of use in places like Burkina Faso or I don't know, Mali, elsewhere in Africa? What can we do? Shall we promote them, or shall we get in what kind of discussion shall we engage? So, questions? Adetun.
Thank you, John. I loved it. But we basically thought what you said already, was it before the PRISM situation or not? But anyway, I think new communication technologies to promote African development and prosperity is always a point of view we have to focus on anyway. And it's happening, and the rate of development is you can't even measure or keep it in a kind of range. And I think this is also part of this society possibility of teaching and nourishing, because what is really basically missing in the African society is this possibility of discussing and having different opinion. and maybe due to the structure of elder and the young people are not allowed to say their opinion, and elderly person can always overrule. And if I see the statistic of 35 years average age, I think this is like the biggest possibility also that we have in these communicating skills to get to a lot of topics that is not mentioned in the African society, homosexuality and so on. And I love the part where the mesh was explained, because I took part in a workshop where I was learning how to, code my emails, and I think this must be more in the aspect how we can kind of save ourselves from being spied, but I don't think, I think we are spied anyway.
You have a real big point here, Aditun. In almost any African country, you have a lot of young people, and the population pressure on the system, because it produces so many young people who want to be educated, who hunger for information, who are using information technology, is enormous. So I think you're right in one point that these young people will exercise pressure on their various countries, especially when it comes, to the hunger for information, free access to information. That's very important. I think so. Yeah. But any other questions?
Yes.
Donnell.
I got a couple of comments. I'm a journalist also. If you go to the internet, you can find me on Press TV and a few other things. I'm glad you prefaced your remarks with the comment that this all happened during the first election, because now we have the revelations about the extensive surveillance, illegal surveillance of the NSA in concert, in conjunction with various European and probably other Asian and even perhaps even some African countries are complicit in the surveillance given their particular situation.
You bet.
The problem that I have is that things are projected always from the point of view that everything's right over here. Now, maybe that's not the intention.
In this film?
Yeah, I think that, sometimes one is given the impression when they talk about criticizing Syria that, as you said, now we have the NSA revelations, which dwarf any programs that Syria had or could even dream of. So what Syria has been charged with, or Iran or anyone else, the West itself is guilty of and is responsible from a historical point of view for all of the ills, for most of the ills in those areas.
No, wait a minute. Wait. Donnell.
Keep going. No, I don't want to.
Let me just answer that straight.
Okay. All right.
In my point of view, okay?
Okay, good, sure.
The thing here is, you're right. The NSA is spying on us. I think it's illegal, but there's a slight distinction here between what they do and what the Syrians are doing. And in my film here, I was, at pains trying to explain that the responsibilities we have, our government, the German government, for instance, has for delivering a torturous regime, the technological means to find bloggers, to find internet activists, to stifle freedom of speech. I mean, the difference between I don't think yet that you can actually compare what the NSA has been doing with the PRISM program and what companies here in Germany are doing by selling these suppressive technologies to countries like Syria. They're killing people. They're using it to kill people. And, I'm not a friend of the NSA. Hey, no, don't get me wrong here. But there is a slight difference in using this technology to kill people, to suppress freedom of speech, and just using this stuff to learn anything about innocent people, citizens.
My intention was not to, engage in a personal, a private
No,
discussion.
I just wanted to.
Okay, so my main point is that, as I said before, I think that in the great scheme of things, the NSA situation is much more nefarious than, given the fact that whatever's going on in Syria is terrible also, you understand? But we're talking about superpowers as opposed to other regimes, and their reach, over the horizon. And, it's just like, this is not the first time the NSA has engaged in this. I was part of the Berlin Club case back in the 1970s, where surveillance was undercover. And in the public consciousness, those who were aware of it, it was forgotten. And we've had this consistently, and even the Ellsberg revelations, all those things point to a consistent effort by people to deceive people, by this government and their cohorts, the Germans and their NATO allies and whatever. There's a systematic thing here. Yeah, sure, they wear Brooke Brothers suits and Stacey Adams shoes, but they're just as dangerous as the people that are being depicted as being,
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. That was just my point.
Granted, but, here the thing is, that's true, Daniel, I agree, but I'd like to focus a little bit on Africa, on the continent, and on what is happening in Africa. And we have in Africa a host of regimes which try to control freedom of speech. I mean, it's part and parcel of staying in power, to control the media, to control freedom of speech. Here, the internet gives opportunity to lots of people to free themselves from that control, state control. And what we've been trying to do in this film is to engage into this discussion and how to do it, and where to find alternative networks which can be encrypted. I mean, we've seen that what they've been doing in Vienna. Basically, you can do that here in Berlin as well. There is a thing here in Berlin called, I think, also Funkfeuer Berlin, where you can, privately own your own, be your own internet service provider and encrypt your communication. So, there are technical means. The people of Seabase here in Berlin, Berlin Hackerspace, they know a lot about, how to protect yourself from snooping, I'm not so sure how, if the state agencies cannot break that encryption, I'm not sure, but there are ways and means to protect yourself if you feel that you need protection on that, yeah, and but let's get engaged into another discussion, please.
Hi, John. Yeah.
Hi.
Great film. My questions is in two folds, really. So, first question: how many people in Egypt actually saw this?
Oh, how many people saw that in Egypt? Well, a handful, I guess. I guess the people who participated in doing this film, they got a copy, yeah, and I'm not sure whether they've been distributing it in Egypt, but I made sure that they get a copy, and I'm not allowed to say that, but because it's a film done for ZDF television and they own the rights, but I don't know what they've been doing it, whether they've been distributing it on it, can't say.
Secondly, thanks. It's about the logistics and obviously the funding of the film. You just mentioned a company there. How were you able to get access to all the some places and people that you spoke to, and who funded that?
Well, this is it's always the same. I'm a documentary filmmaker, so basically, I do documentaries, and I engage in, talk with people and convince them to work with me. It's funded by ZDF Television. They asked me to do this film, and I said, okay, I'll do it. So I basically went there and did my research and came up with a script and what we call a treatment. And I teach journalism, and I teach journalism, documentary filmmaking, and I always say, your treatment is the epitome of your research at a given time. Yeah? And when you do it, actually go out and do the film, out of the window. Yeah? I mean, it's good to have a structured idea what you want to do, but reality trumps everything, because if you're there and you start rolling your film, things happen, and not necessarily the way you anticipated them. So, Ashraf Fahmy, the guy from the Cairo hackerspace, I met in Egypt. I didn't know him before I was there, and the same is with Mustafa Hussein. I knew about him, but I had no contact to him. So basically what you do as a journalist is you go out and you ask people and you research and you hang out and you drink beer and tea and whatever with sources who basically help you on your way. So basically we filmed 1 week in Cairo, and we topped that with 2 days more research on the ground. So in all, I think we've been there 7 days.
And so how long the film took, from pre-production to post-production, actually?
The time?
Yeah.
3 months. That's not that long. It's actually very fast. Yeah, it's but that's the problem you have in producing documentaries in this country. You are forced to do your work rapidement. You have to do it very, very quickly, and that opens room for mistakes, for sloppy research, and I would say I couldn't do it if I wouldn't have a lot of experience. In the end, you have to rely on your routines, and that's what I've been doing the past few years, because the budgets are shrinking, you have no time anymore, and you try to rely on your routines, so to speak.
Any further questions or comments?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was really impressive film.
Thanks.
If it's okay, and it might not make sense, this question, but can I ask a question more about free speech rather than about filming in particular?
Sure.
I'm interested in why people can be arrested or lose their jobs for Facebook comments or tweets in democratic countries.
For
like in the UK.
In the UK?
Yeah, for example. So like, for example, the way I understand it, and maybe this is wrong, is that traditionally there is a difference between assignable harm, like directly inciting action, and unassignable harm, like in expressing a similar point or inciting similar action, but through mass media or the newspaper. So I'm interested as to whether you think Twitter is more like the former, so like directly inciting harm, because it seems to address people directly in cyberspace, or whether it's more like the latter, like the newspaper or mass media. And if it's more like the latter, why people can be arrested or lose their jobs for expressing those points.
Well, I've got an opinion on that. Basically, it's Twitter, social media, Facebook, all other social media, they published instantaneously. You're out there. You press the button and it's out. Post, it's there. So it's instant media to me, yeah, instant communication. And if you, for instance, engage in, if you have you on Facebook, and you engage in a hate crime, like you smear a colleague with racist or whatever remarks, and your employer gets wind of it, because you pushed the button, you posted it, hell yes, you should be taken accountable. I mean, you should know that if you post something on Facebook or Twitter, it's a medium. You publish something, and if you engage in racist remarks against a colleague or whatever, I think your employer has a right to take you to note. Whether that means he should fire you immediately on the spot, or engage in with you and say, hey, get some anti-racism training or whatever. But if you publish something and you're an adult and you publish something on social media, you're responsible for it. Yeah, sure, like any other one. That's my opinion. How?
Do you think that could, in the future, perhaps limit free speech through Twitter in democratic countries?
No, if I'm free speech, who said that? In German, die Freiheit des Einzelnen endet dort, wo die Freiheit des anderen beginnt. Who was that? Something like that? No, it's not Grundgesetz. Basically, let me roughly translate. Your own freedom ends there where the freedom of somebody else is starting. So, as a journalist, I have to follow the law. Yeah, and it's illegal to smear people, to engage in hate crimes. Yeah, and not only that, it's not only bad taste. It's illegal. It's shameful. To smear people because of their race, gender, sexual orientation, whatever. If you do that through Twitter or through Facebook or through the Sun newspaper. You should be taken into account, and that has nothing to do with free speech. At least not. And here in Germany, for instance, you're not allowed to raise your arm in the Hitler salute. You're going to the dock for that. Yeah, and I think rightly so. Yeah, that's different. You can do that in the U.S. You can go to Times Square and make the Hitler salute and sing the first strophe of the former German national anthem. You can do that. Yeah, in Germany you will be arrested.
There was somebody who did it.
Yeah.
He was not arrested. Jonathan Mese.
Yeah, you mean he's an artist. Yeah, and it's a big. Yeah, there is a slight, there's a slight, how to say, there's a fine line between art and, what he did was, as far as I'm aware, is that the court set him free. Yeah, but the prosecution the prosecution is basically trying to get him on dock again.